On a 14-foot length of ancient linen lies an image so faint it's almost invisible, yet so haunting it has captivated the world for centuries. This is the Shroud of Turin, believed by millions to be nothing less than the burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth. To some, it is the holiest relic in all of Christianity. To others, it is history's greatest scam. But here's the contradiction. No one has been able to explain how the image got there. It isn't painted. It isn't drawn. And yet, it bears the wounds of a crucified man with uncanny forensic accuracy. Is this proof of the resurrection, or the most brilliant forgery ever created? Stay with us, because the truth about the shroud is far stranger than you think. The story doesn't begin in the tomb of Christ, but in medieval France. In 1353, a French knight named Geoffrey de Charny unveiled the mysterious linen in the small village of Liry. Pilgrims flocked to see it, many convinced they were gazing at the very burial cloth of Christ himself. But not everyone was convinced. In 1389, Pierre d'Arcis, the Bishop of Troyes, publicly denounced the cloth as a fraud. He claimed that an artist had confessed to painting the image. And his accusation wasn't without context. The medieval period was notorious for relic forgeries. Fake nails from the crucifixion, counterfeit fragment of the true cross, even entire skeletons of saints were fabricated and sold to the faithful for profit. For decades, the shroud's reputation swung between reverence and scandal. Fires damaged it. The powerful House of Savoy took it into their custody, moving it from castle to castle, until finally, in 1578, it found a permanent home in Turin, Italy, where it remains under lock and key to this day. But if its first clear appearance is in the 14th century, 1,000 years after the crucifixion, how could it possibly be genuine? That's the first great mystery, and it only gets stranger. For centuries, the image on the shroud was little more than a blur, a ghostly outline, nothing that could silence the skeptics. But in 1898, an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia was allowed to take the first photographs of the cloth. When he developed his negatives in the darkroom, he froze in disbelief. On the glass plate, the face staring back at him was not faint at all, but shockingly clear. The image on the cloth, it turned out, was a photographic negative, light and shadow reversed. This discovery was impossible to explain. Photography itself had only just been invented. How could a medieval artist, centuries earlier, have produced an image that behaved like a negative photograph? And the abnormality didn't end there. Later research revealed that the shroud's image encodes three-dimensional information, like a topographical map of the body it once covered. No painting, no drawing, no known natural process has ever replicated this exact effect. Some experts became convinced this was no medieval artwork. Something extraordinary had imprinted the image onto the cloth. But if not paint, then what? Look closer, and the shroud isn't just an unclear outline of a man. It's a crime scene frozen in linen. Forensic experts who have examined the image see more than shadows. They see wounds. Over 100 diagonal scourge marks slash across the back, the unmistakable signature of a Roman flagrum, a whip tipped with lead balls. The head is pierced by dozens of tiny punctures, not in a neat circle like the crowns of thorns in medieval art, but scattered across the scalp, exactly what you'd expect if a cruel cap of thorns had been jammed down. The wrists, not the palms, bear the nail wounds. Medieval artists consistently painted nails in the palms, but modern anatomy confirms a crucified man could only hang by nails driven through the wrists, because the palm cannot support the body weight. Even the blood tells a story. A large elliptical wound appears on the right side of the body, with not just blood, but clear serum, a detail invisible until modern medical science revealed it as a sign of death by spear thrust. Then there's the dirt. Traces of soil on the nose and feet match the ground around Jerusalem. And pollen grains embedded in the fibers come from plants that bloom only in the Holy Land. Taken together, the shroud reads like a forensic report of the crucifixion described in the Gospels. And yet, skeptics argue, if the shroud is medieval, how could an artist have gotten so many medical details right, centuries before science caught up? In 1988, the world thought the mystery was solved. 3 independent laboratories, in Arizona, Zurich, and Oxford, tested the shroud using carbon-14 dating. The results were clear and devastating, stating that the shroud existed between 1260 and 1390 AD. A medieval artifact, not the burial cloth of Christ, but a clever forgery. Because this date is far from the time of Jesus Christ. The announcement made global headlines. For many, the case was closed. But almost immediately, cracks began to appear in the so-called final decision. Critics pointed out that the test samples came from a corner of the shroud that was a medieval repair fragment, and possibly repaired after the fire in 1532. If the samples contained newer threads, the date could be one-sided. Others argued that centuries of contamination, from bacteria, mold, even smoke, may have introduced young carbon, making the cloth appear medieval when in fact it could be much older. And then came the bombshell. A team in Italy, using a brand new technique called wide-angle X-ray scattering, tested the molecular structure of the linen itself. Their results: roughly 2,000 years old, consistent with the time of Jesus. So, what do we believe? The established decision of the 1980s, or the amazing new evidence that points back to the 1st century? The shroud had once again defied the science meant to explain it. So where does this leave us? The Shroud of Turin sits at the crossroads of faith and science, and both sides continue to wrestle with its secrets. Skeptics point to modern experiments. Digital artists have shown that by draping cloth over a shallow relief sculpture, a similar imprint can be created, suggesting the shroud may be a brilliant piece of medieval craftsmanship. Anatomical oddities, like elongated arms and stylized hand placement, add fuel to the forgery theory. But believers point to what science still cannot explain. The image is a photographic negative, discovered centuries before photography. It encodes three-dimensional data, and some physicists suggest only a burst of radiant energy, a kind of ultraviolet light beyond anything we can reproduce, could have carved the image onto the cloth without burning it. The Catholic Church itself takes a careful stance. It does not declare the shroud authentic, but it encourages veneration. Popes have called it a mirror of the gospel, a silent witness to Christ's suffering, death, and resurrection. And maybe that's the point. For me, I believe the shroud is truly the burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth, a sacred witness to his suffering, death, and resurrection. But even if it were not, the image engraved into this linen still stands as a powerful reminder of the scourging, the thorns, the nails, and the love that endured it all. Whether you see it as a divine relic, a work of devotion, or a mystery science has yet to solve, the Shroud of Turin compels us to look deeper, into history, into faith, and into the meaning of sacrifice itself. One thing is certain: it is more than cloth. It is a mirror of the gospel, and one of the world's most enduring mysteries.